fine, well, I'll make it better, that's what I do. So language is interesting for a number of reasons, because, people don't understand language. Is that if I show something like this, people say, well, what's that? And people are probably going to say, well, that's a hand. Yeah? So if I remove the thumb and cut it off, is it still a hand? The answer is no. The problem for you is that, and everybody else, is that you don't have a different word now. You're going to say, well, there is 4 fingers on that hand. But this is a hand, this is not a hand. You make it like that and people go, well, that's a fist. Isn't this a hand also? And people go, well, yeah, but if you do it like that, that's a hand, that's a fist, not a hand. Because your brain has to make a distinction, a difference in the context. So when you have a PGA professional teaching tuberose, for example, and people defend all the teachings, by the way, which I don't understand, because they teach you crap. They're going to tell you to do something called rotate your hips. Problem is your hips are located in your legs. And there is no rotation in the golf swing. But the way language works is that when you show people this, is this a hand? No, people are going to say, well, it's 4 fingers. And then people's brain, in your brain, going to go, well, this is 4 fingers on the hand or something like that, right? Because you have to reference the hand. It's just how your brain operates. It's actually going to make the sentence happen before you even think about it. Because your brain can't do anything else because, again, it's contextual. It's not unconscious. It's contextual. So when something like this happens, when you remove something and people go, is this a hand? No, it's no. Is it a fist? No, because it allows for 3 fingers and a thumb. And your brain goes, now you have to make up a word. This is how language operates. If you talk to old people and the young people today, a lot of youngsters today use a cell phone, right? That means that their language changes also when they send all this text. So they have a hard time reading books. Because it's contextual. Reading is contextual, right? So when the PGA professional teaches you as a 2 pro, rotate your hips and they're located in your legs, and you understand the word rotate. What happens in your brain now? Well, you understand rotation, right? But you're not supposed to rotate. There is no rotation in the golf swing. So by those 2 things, rotate your hips, the PGA 2 professional who teaches 2 pros has already made the biggest error they can make in the instruction because it won't work. You can't do it. And people do this all the time, by the way. They tell you stupid shit like this. And what you do, and you have learned over your, turn over your lifetime, is accept what people teach doesn't work, and then have to figure out and adapt to it in some way so you can do it. That means that you actually pay people to teach you shit, and are happy to pay for that. Kind of weird if you think about it, So this is what what I do is a little bit different because when I teach things, they always work. They can't fail. Now the channel have, for parents who have a dyslexic kid, if they approach and use the technology I developed, the method, it will always work because it's based on how people read in their heads. That means that for my approach and my perspective of dyslexic, for example, there's only 2 forms of dyslexia. Either you're disorganized, and my method, when you apply, will organize it, and then you can get really, really fast results. I've done things in a couple of minutes with kids. They were dyslexic, with diagnosis, sick there for 5-6 years, and then the parents look at the kid and go, what are you doing? And they look up to you, well, Mom, I'm reading. And then the mom, they look at me and go, is this a hand? And this, because now they have to face something they never, it's like magic, right? What are you going to do now? Because your brain doesn't have a memory for this kind of situation when your reality is suddenly, your kid is reading, and you go, were they faking it? No, this is just, one of the lack examples. Now the other example with the kids who are dyslexic is that the memory function they have for the skill, to read, is not performing properly. So now you have to repeat it to build a memory for the skill to be able to read. And it just takes more time. Those doesn't take 2 minutes, they take hours, right, over a longer period of time. Because you have to repeat it, and give them feedback, repeat feedback, until the memory function becomes accessible for them and stable, so they know they're spelling cat, C-A-T-T-A-C, for example, and they know it's correct. Like that. Most people, when I do this, who are actually teaching English or such language, or Swedish or such, they can't really track what when I'm working like this, they can't track what I'm doing because they're not used to understand how people read. And that's your teacher in school, they don't understand how people read. So that means that when they have all those kids who are using cell phones, they can't read a book, now they don't know how to teach them. And they blame, social media and concentration difficulty. No, they don't have a concentration difficulty because they will sit on the cell phone for a whole day if they want, if you let them. So this is how your language operates. It's your brain. It's contextualized. So your brain goes, this is a hand, this is a fist, and you lose 4 fingers and a thumb, and your brain goes, is this a hand? And you can't let it go. Well, you have 1 finger on and you have to finish that. Your brain just go, I have to finish that. Doesn't he gonna finish that word? No, I'm not. So that's how you know. So when the PK professional comes in and teach, rotate your hips, you hear rotation, your brain understands rotation, now you're gonna try to do it when there is no rotation in the guesswork. It's a mislabel and misconception. So the two professional, a two pro, they're gonna have a problem now because they're gonna try to do a rotation when you're not supposed to do that. Kind of weird if you think about it. So this is one of the issues, right? And the way memory operates for, people say, well, it's contextual, right? You have to decide between this is a fist and this is a hand. How do you do that? Well, people say, well, it looks different. Yeah, but how does your brain distinguish between this and that? That's your brain doing it. It's contextual. In that context, because otherwise, if you ask for, something, you can look at babies, for example, when they try to start to speak, they go, and the mothers and dads go, and the baby, they notice that feedback. They don't understand what I want, and then they, start to raise their voice usually, because they can't pronounce the letters properly. Speech problems usually happens because of that. And the speech therapists, for example, they don't understand how speaking works. Just to be able to speak, you have, I don't know how many muscles in your 30 or 40, whatever it is, I don't know, I haven't checked, but you have a lot of muscles in your, to be able to get your, voice membranes to do this. I only have one. I have a surgery when I was 30 years old, so I actually have to learn to use one of those vocal cords to talk the way I do. So I can various, because I had to train my, and babies and small kids, they don't have trained all those muscles, and there's very fine coordination in the vocal cords. They can't speak properly, right? And it takes a long time unless you train them to do it a little bit faster, because speech therapists are not used to understand the way you have to do things is a skill level, and speaking is a skill, because you have to coordinate all those muscles in your vocal cords to get something come out the proper way, depending on your language. Right? If you look at people who are actors, they have to learn to speak a different accent. If you have or English or Walish or Scottish, you have to go with the American, speak American accent. And if you're good at it, the Americans won't know the difference. Which is kind of weird if you think about it. Why would they want, people to speak an American accent? Oh, it's an American TV show or an American movie. I'm like, But people are different out there in the world. They speak differently. And the funny thing, if you have, someone from Scotland or Wales, and they speak their own, language, which is, people say, kind of English, but, kind of not, people wouldn't understand them. People have to read what they actually said, which won't be acceptable probably for an American audience. It's kind of weird to think about it. I mean, in the UK, for example, voice and such are very important, because the way you speak in the UK decides what kind of, individual, or, you either, royalty or something like that, and you can fuck kids like Prince Andrew did, or you're on the, ground floor and speaking, whatever I don't know what those accents are. So the hierarchy in the UK and such English countries, they are decided on how you actually speak. You are identified by your language. If you change your accent and learn to speak a different accent, people will treat you differently in the UK immediately. It's very funny. In America, everybody wearing a suit, right? You don't need to wear a suit. I don't wear a suit. I don't own one, because I don't care about that shit. People think, well, I'm an American, and I have to wear a suit in my TV shows. And I'm like, why? Because people think those are successful. They identify success with, you have to have a very expensive suit, and you're very successful. It's kind of stupid if you think about it. It's just a clothes, it's just something you dress with, cover up your body. So when people say, oh, you're naked, that would be weird. If you think about it, think about it next big meeting you have and everybody has to go in there naked. That would be a kind of an interesting meeting, Yeah, people are weird. So that's how, language operates with the contextual cues, right? And the way the brain works is that when you play golf, when you look down, once you look down, you see the ball, your brain has, learned that in the context. So when you try to change your swing, the tubers try to do that. Every time they look down, the brain just goes swing the whole swing. And if you understand how this works, you can retrain your brain rather fast, actually, and really do a new swing without, within a very, very short time, if you follow proper instruction, of course. But you can't do that with PDA. It's not possible. This is, the reason why this guy who was 50 years old and, was at 220 meters, that not be used in the modern era, is because they don't know that they teach you to be stuck. And since you're stuck now and you try to rotate, you develop compensations. This is why you get back problems and all other shit people. And you lose distance. Especially amateurs lose a lot of distance to use now. I mean, a 20-year-old can be at 220 meters, give or take. But I have a 60-year-old who is at 240 meters plus. 68-year-old. Because people can't. You have to understand that, a lady LPGA pro, they are at 260 to 240 meters to 260 meters, give or take, right? And they are 40% weaker than you are at age 60. They won't stand a chance in a wrestling game, for example, versus a guy who is 40 years older. But they can hit basically a lot longer than men do. Then people say, well, golf swings is difficult and complicated. Or is it just that they don't know what they're actually doing and teach you conceptual guesswork, so you have to adapt to it, kind of messes things up because now you're stuck and compensate and lose distance, especially as an amateur. Tubers lose distance also. Every tuber swing you see, they can't swing at full power because balls start to go like this. And then they lose the two card. And then, that's the end of their career. But that's how you learn, You learn a skill. Talking is a skill. And once you learn the skill, people say, well, it's not unconscious now. No, it's always going to be contextual, right? It's just people think it's unconscious because people have been teaching that for over 100 years. But it's actually just contextual. Once you understand that the brain has to make a distinction, the difference between a fist and a hand, and then it can't do it when you do this. It's still kind of a hand when it's not a hand. You don't have a word for it. Your brain doesn't have a conceptual word what this is. There's a lot of those, words that doesn't exist because people haven't, yet found them. And it's very hard for the brain to, comprehend this because your brain is pretty stupid, Your brain is literal, It's either a hand or a fist, but this, and your brain can't really form a word for it. It's kind of funny. I think it's really funny, right? So words affect your perception, it affects your behavior, like rotation, when you're not supposed to rotate in the golf swing. It's a mislabeling, misconception. But as long as you use the word, as long as you're looking down, you're going to see the ball and your brain going to go swing time. That's what you can't change. This is why, you do the drills without the club, with a club, with no ball, until your brain has started to adapt to a different context, within the same context, at some point, when because you have to learn to ignore the ball. You have to learn to relax. Because people don't know that the modern golf grip forces you to have more grip pressure and so on. And that, one of the things that people have that causes a lot of swing problems is the modern golf grip. And if you listen to them and listen to PGA and defend them, instead of what I teach, it's up to you.